Backed by armored cover and aggressive CQB tactics, the Azov Special Forces managed to seize control of the trench sector, and the end result surprised the Russian forces. Dozens of Russian personnel moved toward a trench sector that served as a key point on the front line. At almost the same time, approximately 30 members of the Ukrainian Azov unit, known for their extensive combat experience, also moved in the same direction, supported by armored vehicles that brought them closer to the battlefield. Both sides seemed to have the same goal, to capture the same trench. But what happened next was completely unexpected. The distance between the two groups closed. They entered the same trench area, separated only by a few bends in the ground and a protective wall. Within minutes, the situation turned into one of the most tense moments ever recorded from the front lines. How could two armies moving from different directions end up in the same location at almost the same time? And when first contact finally occurred, an unexpected event occurred that changed the course of the situation in the sector. What exactly happened inside the trench? Read on to the end. After entering the battle sector, several Ukrainian BMP armored vehicles were seen moving quickly toward the front line. Inside them were dozens of personnel preparing to enter the trench area that had been the center of tension in the sector for the past few days. Their goal was quite clear: to strengthen their positions on the front line and secure the trench network, which served as a crucial point for both sides' movements. In this type of terrain, trenches were more than just foxholes. They were logistics routes, observation points, and the first line of defense that determined who had control over the surrounding area. And it was precisely in this sector that the situation began to heat up. Footage showed Ukrainian troops dismounting from armored vehicles and moving toward their designated positions. However, at almost the same time, reports from the same area indicated the activity of Russian troops also stationed not far from the trench network. This meant the distance between the two sides was narrowing. Every bend in the trench, every connecting path, and every corner of cover had the potential to become an unplanned encounter. Tensions continued to rise as both sides began to position their personnel in very close proximity. No one wanted to lose this strategic position, as whoever controlled the trench would have a significant advantage in monitoring enemy movements in the surrounding sector. And this was the moment that drastically changed the situation. As more personnel moved into the trench network, it became clear that the two sides were much closer than previously thought. What happened moments later suddenly turned this sector into one of the most tense points on the front line. Now the situation became much more complicated. After both sides successfully entered the same trench network, they turned out to be much closer than initially thought. Footage and reports from the sector indicated that dozens of Russian personnel had occupied a specific trench section, while approximately 30 Ukrainian personnel were in a trench line directly connected to it. To make matters even more tense, the two groups were separated by only a few tight bends and protective earthen walls. In this kind of terrain, even tens of meters felt incredibly close. Every footstep, brief conversation, or movement of equipment could be a clue that the enemy was just around the corner. Neither side knew for certain how large the enemy force was ahead. As a result, movements were carried out with extreme caution. Some personnel were seen pausing to survey the trench line ahead, while others prepared to secure every potential point of contact. The tension continued to rise as both sides tried to hold their positions unaware of what was happening just meters ahead. And this is what made this event so fascinating. Instead of direct contact within seconds, the two groups were incredibly close without even seeing each other. The narrow bends in the trench created an almost impossible situation, dozens of personnel from both sides in the same area, yet still blocked by the winding terrain. But such a situation could not last. The more personnel moved into the trench network, the less chance there was of avoiding encounters. One step too far, one corner overlooked unobserved, or a decision to advance just a few meters could change the entire situation in an instant. And moments later, something finally happened within the trench network that brought the tension to a fever pitch. What lay beyond the next bend was the beginning of a moment neither side would soon forget. Footage from the sector shows the moment a number of Russian personnel finally chose to surrender after the situation around them rapidly changed. The decision came amidst extremely tense conditions as control of the trench network began to shift, and the effects were immediate. The more trench sections they secured, the greater the tactical advantage Ukrainian forces gained. Links that had previously been contested began to fall under their control. At this stage, it is estimated that nearly 50% of the trench network in the sector was under Ukrainian control. But the fighting was not truly over. A number of Russian personnel remained in other trench sections. They knew that losing this sector would expose them to greater pressure on the positions behind them. This further fueled the tension. On the one hand, Ukrainian forces began to see an opportunity to seize control of the entire trench network. On the other hand, the remaining Russian troops were trying to prevent complete control from falling to their opponents. The question now was no longer who would enter the trenches first. The question is, will Ukraine be able to secure the entire trench network, or will a last-minute resistance emerge that will change the game? And what happens next makes this sector even more interesting to watch. Unlike open-air combat, trenches create narrow, winding terrain full of blind spots. Numeracy is not always the deciding factor. Much more important are coordination, communication, and the ability to control the enemy's movement. One frequently used tactic is to gradually secure each bend in the trench. The goal is not to advance as quickly as possible, but rather to ensure each captured section is secure before moving on to the next sector. In situations like this, troops that successfully control trench intersections typically gain a significant advantage. Intersections function like main roads, connecting multiple routes. Controlling these points allows for monitoring and limiting enemy movement in various directions. Furthermore, armored vehicle support behind the front line also plays a crucial role. While not always directly entering the trench, their presence helps deliver personnel, logistics, and equipment to needed positions more quickly. The next factor is situational awareness. In trench warfare, information is often the most valuable weapon. Troops that know the enemy's position first can usually determine when to move, when to defend, and when to press the enemy's position. Therefore, good observation and smooth communication are often the difference between success and failure in an operation. So what's the solution to winning trench warfare? In general, victory usually comes from the side that can do three things simultaneously: hold secured lines, control key crossing points, and keep personnel and logistic supplies flowing to the front lines. If any of these three factors are compromised, a captured position can quickly become difficult to maintain. And that's why trench warfare often lasts longer than many people imagine. Capturing a position is only the first step. The real challenge is holding it while enemy pressure continues to mount. In this sector, Ukrainian forces have successfully captured most of the contested area. But the biggest question remains: will they be able to maintain these gains long-term, or will the seemingly secure sector turn into a fiercely contested battleground in the coming days? Ultimately, the events in this trench sector demonstrate that in modern warfare, victory isn't always determined by who has the most equipment or the most personnel. Often, the outcome on the ground is determined by coordination, discipline, the ability to read the situation, and split-second decisions. In this sector, Ukrainian forces managed to expand their control over a large portion of the trench network and forced some Russian personnel to surrender. However, as is often the case on the front lines, the situation can change very quickly. A position secured today could be recontested in the coming days. That's why developments in this sector remain interesting to monitor. How will operations in this area progress? Will control of the trenches remain, or will a new chapter emerge that changes the situation on the front lines? We'll discuss the latest developments and other interesting footage in the next video. If you enjoy discussions about military tactics, battlefield developments, weapons technology, and operational analysis from around the world, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, activate the notification bell, and support this channel by liking and commenting. Thanks for watching. I'll take my leave and see you in the next video.